What is a rig? Essentially, a rig is an object or objects that make it easier for you to animate your 3D asset. Now, you don't actually need a rig to do some animations. In this example, there's no rig. I'm just animating a basic ball that's going around in a circle. I know, I'm pretty good at animation. So for some simple situations, you don't need a rig at all. But if you do want to do anything more complicated than this, like add squash and stretch or rotate the ball, then you'll need to have a rig. This is going to make the animation process a lot easier. Now, most of the time, a rig should just consist of one object, and that would be an armature. And it doesn't have to just consist of one. It could have 2 or more armatures. It can also have some helper meshes or even other empty objects, lattices, curve objects. A car rig might have lights attached to it. A camera rig should hopefully have a camera attached to it. All of these objects can be parented and constrained together to create what's called your rig. Now, even though we might have multiple objects or multiple armatures inside your rig, the aim is to only have the animator actually animate one armature. Now, if you're one of those people who rigs everything with empty objects because that's what you've seen on YouTube, I want you to stop doing that right now. I'll explain why that's not a good idea in just a moment. So all of these objects here could be part of your rig. Now, what are we concerning ourselves with the most in this course? That would be the thing that the animator should be animating, the armature. Say it with me, the armature. Now, why are we using an armature? Because Blender was designed to be used that way. Armatures have a special mode called pose mode, which gives the animator access to specific tools that's going to make the animation workflow a lot quicker and easier. Plus, the way the data is structured at the moment is best suited to this workflow. But before I explain that, perhaps I'll explain how I think about how everything works inside Blender, and then hopefully it'll make more sense. I think of it like this. Everything inside Blender is a container, starting with your 3D scene. This is a container for your objects. We've obviously got different types of objects. We've got meshes, lights, cameras, armatures, etc. And each one of these object types have their own specific data that can be attached to these containers. Mesh objects can have mesh data attached to it, lights can have light data attached to it, and so on. And when we animate any object inside Blender, we get a new type of container called an action. This is where our animation data is stored, and it is linked to the object. So say we've got a rig that has 500 empties or different objects that are used to control it. That is 500 separate actions that we need to keep track of as an animator. However, if you have one armature with 500 controls, that is only one action that we need to keep track of, which is much easier to handle. Plus, we have all the benefits of the animation tools that comes along with that. It is, however, worth pointing out that the Blender developers are restructuring the way that actions work so they can actually have the animation data for different objects contained inside the one action. That's on its way, but at the time of this recording, it hasn't landed yet. So now you're probably thinking, hey, I can use 500 empties. That's where I would argue, yes, you can, but you still shouldn't, because armatures are still the only objects that have access to the animation tools. And that part isn't as far along in the development as the actions are at this moment in time. So that's why we want to rig as much as we can with armatures. That's the way to go, people. In the next video, I'll explain how armatures work and why, if they were a person, I'd want to kiss them on the mouth.